Hey, what's up, people? How's it going out there? It's me, S Rank. Got another movie review for you. This time we're going to talk about the new Guy Ritchie movie, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, starring Charlie Hunnam of Sons of Anarchy fame, Jude Law. Now, what would you say Jude Law is most famous for? Let's say Guy Ritchie movie. Let's go with Sherlock Holmes fame. Famous Jude Law of various fames. You know who he is. He's back. And other actors that don't matter at all in this movie. So the movie's been panned pretty universally, it seems like. Got destroyed at the box office. It is a flop. But is it terrible? Can you trust these reviews out there? I would say no. I found it enjoyable. You know, it's not the greatest movie that's ever been made. It's not the greatest Guy Ritchie movie ever made. It's not the worst because it doesn't have Madonna in it. But, you know, it is what it is. I think that if you like Guy Ritchie movies generally, you'll find some enjoyment from this movie. It is ridiculous, but it has a certain charm to it. So, what's the premise of the movie? Jude Law is King Arthur's uncle. Eric Bana plays his father. I don't know if they ever say that he's Uther Pendragon, but, you know, King Arthur legend, he's Uther Pendragon. Shockingly, Jude Law betrays his brother, murders him, steals the crown. Arthur's father gets him to a boat and sends him downriver. And he's in this version, he's raised by prostitutes. He doesn't know that he's the king. Doesn't have any recollection of what happened to his father. He's kind of suppressed these memories. And in Guy Ritchie fashion, he's become kind of a gangster figure. And obviously he has to reclaim his legacy and own his lineage, pull the sword from stone and reclaim the throne. Classic King Arthur. You know, watching this movie, it almost seems like Guy Ritchie wanted to make a Robin Hood movie. It has a lot of Robin Hood tropes to it with these, you know, the King Arthur is a criminal, but he's got a good heart and he's looking out for the little people, the impoverished people all around town. And the bad guy is the king, and he's got his foot on everyone's neck and he's oppressing everyone, so Arthur has to rise up and take it back. But definitely watching the movie, I got a Robin Hood and his Merry Men vibe the whole time. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it is a new and interesting take on the Arthurian legends. You'll have to decide that for yourself. I found it enjoyable, but, you know, it is different. I think it works for the most part because it plays off Guy Ritchie's strengths, which are those, you know, he's best known for classic British gangster movies. You know, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. You know, those are classics in that genre. And he really brings what he's known for here, and it works. And he also gets the opportunity to step outside of his comfort zone. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's some problems there. The big moments, the big fantasy action moments in the movie, I feel are the worst elements of this film. You've probably seen the giant elephant monsters in the trailer, which are kind of absurd, but it's a pretty cool moment, good set piece. They do this odd thing with the action scenes in the movie where the camera pans around, but it's not a continuous shot, so it's really jerky. It's almost like a composite shot that they've taken, and it will like come in and out, and there's a lot of odd. I want to say cuts, but they're not cuts. They've tried to make it look like it's a continuous thing, but it can be pretty jarring. it's like if you took a bunch of images and then you mash them together to make a whole picture, but you can still see the seams of each individual picture. It's the best way I could describe it. Sometimes it looks pretty cool, but I don't know if it works as well as they thought it did. It's a little off-putting. And maybe some just straight up action choreography would have been better. Hard to say. You know, it didn't ruin the movie for me, but it is a little bit weird. But you know, this isn't necessarily what Guy Ritchie's known for directing, his action style. So there's that. So how are the performances in the movie? Jude Law's pretty good. He knows he's worked with Guy Ritchie before. He knows he's in a Guy Ritchie movie. Charlie Hunnam. Now, what to say about his performance? He's not the worst part of the movie. He's not terrible, but it's almost like he doesn't realize what type of film he's in. Like, he thinks he's in a straight up heroic fantasy movie. He doesn't have that. He lacks the self-awareness to capture the character that the dialogue would suggest he's supposed to be. He just plays it too straight. There's some moments where he has some levity and charm. Doesn't seem like it's necessarily his strong suit. So that's off-putting. But like I said, he's not the worst part of the movie, because that chick, Astrid, they just call her the mage in the movie. I forget what the actress's name is. It's like something French, I think. She's awful. Your mind will be blown by how terrible she is. Her line delivery is like so stunted and wooden. Oh my goodness. Presumably there was tryouts for this role and they said, "You're the best person we've seen." I can't imagine how that came about. Maybe they just offered it to her straight up. Mistake. She was horrendously terrible. Oh my goodness. Wow. Bad. But overall, the supporting cast, they don't have a lot to do in the movie. There's some interesting threads they set up there, which is a problem with the movie. They don't establish the characters they have now because they're entertaining this outlandish notion that this would be the start of a franchise. No. So none of the characters are going to get any development in the future, and I guess they felt like, we don't have to develop all these characters now. We're going to have 3 or 4 more films to do that. Not going to happen. Kind of odd to have a King Arthur movie without the Knights of the Round Table. They set that tease up at the end of the movie, but like I said, we're never going to get a sequel to this movie. But none of the characters, I think Percival was in the movie. Somebody was Percival. I don't think he did anything. They mentioned his name and then he showed up at the end. I can't recall him ever doing anything significant on screen. But like, no Lancelot, no Galahad, no Merlin. They mention Merlin a lot. He exists. But you know, he's not in this movie, so you know, hold out for the sequel, I guess, if you're interested in what Merlin's doing. I saw someone complaining that there's a moment in the I want to say halfway through the movie, maybe a little bit later than that, where King Arthur goes on this quest to find himself, and it's just told in montages. He goes to the Darkland or something like that, something Shadowland or something completely vacuous like that, and he encounters a bunch of trials and tribulations, and they're CGI monsters for the most part, and we see that in quick cuts, and people are like, well, I wish I could have seen that. That's an interesting story. Have to disagree on that, because like I said, the big parts of this movie are the worst parts of the movie. I do not relish the idea of a 2-hour version of that story being told. Yikes. It's just not Guy Ritchie's forte, and I'd like to see him do more of what he knows he can do, which the movie overall, I found it very enjoyable. It's different. It's very different. It's like if how to describe this best. I would say, so imagine, just for sake of reference, you said you take Lord of the Rings, and then you say, what if we directed this as though it was Ocean's 11? That's kind of the best comparison I could come up with for what this movie is tonally. It has these epic sword and sorcery moments, and then the smaller character moments are, they're classic Guy Ritchie with just the line delivery and a lot of montage cuts. I found it enjoyable. I have to say, although I will admit, I was ready for the movie to be over when it was over. So there is that. But overall, it was pretty good. One thing is kind of weird, like the timeline. Don't think about it, I guess, because it's weird. Londinia exists. The King Arthur legends are taking place. But we know, like, historically, we know when Londinium happened. And also, there's, like, this cabal of Vikings, like 11th century Vikings that are all decked out in their fineries, and they've made some deal with Jude Law's character. He has to give them like 10,000 children. I don't know if it's male children or just children, but he's paying them off so that their king doesn't come and fuck his shit up. So, that it's weird because the timeline where like King Arthur would have operated, assuming it was a real thing, Vikings wouldn't have been in the picture at all. But they're a serious, like, I guess we're supposed to believe that they're a serious threat. They kind of establish them potentially for the sequel. Watch out for those Vikings in the sequel that will never come. Yeah, so that's a little bit weird, but I guess, like, who cares? There's giant elephant monsters that are breaking castles down. Like, I don't think they were too concerned about the accuracy of the timeline. I feel like I'm poking a lot of holes in the movie, but it's just a fun action movie. Don't expect an Oscar contender when you go in to see this movie. It's stupid, for sure, but I found it really entertaining. I liked most of what I saw. Charlie Hunnam, he could get some more levity, and that maybe would have helped. But it's not supposed to be a serious movie, which maybe that the marketing of the movie fell flat in that department. It's supposed to have this sense of like lightness and fun, but also set to the backdrop of the King Arthur legends, which are pretty dark. The movie overall is pretty beautiful. The cinematography is great. There are some CGI locations that don't look great. And if you can't film something normally, like if you had a camera and you say, we can't, like, this is an impossible film to shoot, don't do it with CGI, because it just looks fake. If you're gonna use a CGI background, film it as though you would have filmed a regular set if you were on it, if you were on location somewhere. Some of the establishing shots are pretty ridiculous, and is what it is. Overall, though, I would say, maybe check it out with an open mind. Probably don't pay full price like I did. Check it out on like a matinee, or in Canada, if you go to Cineplex or anywhere that accepts scene points, I think you can get the half price movie on Tuesday. For a half price movie, I would check this out. I would recommend it. Or you could wait till it comes on VOD or Netflix. I definitely think it's worth a watch, provided your expectations are reasonable. I think you might enjoy it. Peace.